Marcus Kane pressed himself against the cold stone wall as plasma bolts scorched the air above his head. The ancient castle's corridors echoed with the sounds of battle. His squad had been sent to extract a human diplomat from this god-forsaken vampire world. But everything had gone wrong from the moment they landed. The Terran Confederation had been at war with the Catherian Empire for 3 years now. What started as a border dispute had escalated into a full-scale galactic conflict. The vampires had chosen to remain neutral, which made their moon station a perfect meeting point for secret negotiations. At least, that was the plan. Marcus checked his ammunition counter. 12 rounds left in his rifle, 2 grenades, and a combat knife. Not great odds against an entire castle full of hostiles. He could hear his team's voices crackling through his damaged comm unit, scattered throughout the fortress after the ambush. Echo 7, this is Echo Leader. Report status, came Lieutenant Rivera's voice. Distorted by static, Marcus keyed his mic. Echo 7 here. I'm in the East Wing. Upper level. Lost visual on the package. These aren't Catherians, LT. Something else is going on here. The plasma fire had stopped. Marcus counted to 10, then peered around the corner. The hallway stretched ahead, lit by flickering torches that cast dancing shadows on tapestried walls. Medieval Earth mixed with advanced alien technology. It was surreal. A scream echoed from somewhere deeper in the castle. Female, young. It wasn't combat-related, but something else entirely. Marcus had heard enough screams in his 8 years of military service to know the difference. This was pain, but also desperation. Echo 7, be advised, we have movement in the courtyard. Multiple hostiles converging on the West Wing. Fall back to Rally Point Beta. Rivera's voice crackled again. Marcus looked toward the sound of the scream, then toward the extraction route. Every instinct told him to follow orders, link up with his team, and get off this rock. But something in that scream made him hesitate. It reminded him of his sister's voice when she was scared as a child. Echo 7, acknowledge. Copy, Echo Leader. Moving to Rally Point Beta, Marcus lied smoothly, then switched off his comm unit. Rivera would have his head for this, assuming they both lived long enough. He moved down the corridor, weapon raised, following the source of the scream. The castle was massive, built into the side of a mountain. The vampire houses had ruled this world for centuries, long before humans had even achieved spaceflight. Their architecture reflected both their age and their power. Another scream, closer now. Marcus followed a spiral staircase downward, his boots silent on the stone steps. Years of special forces training had taught him how to move without sound, even in full combat gear. The staircase opened into a circular chamber. Ancient symbols covered the walls, glowing with soft blue light. In the center of the room lay a young woman on what looked like an altar. She was pale, even for a vampire, with long silver hair spread around her head like a halo. Her clothes were torn, and dark veins spread across her visible skin like infection. 3 figures in dark robes stood around her, chanting in a language Marcus didn't recognize. One held a curved dagger that pulsed with the same blue light as the wall symbols. This wasn't a medical procedure. This was a ritual, and from the looks of it, the girl was dying. Marcus had seen vampire nobility before during diplomatic functions. They were usually elegant, composed, radiating an otherworldly beauty and power. This girl looked like she was fading away, becoming translucent around the edges. One of the robed figures raised the dagger. The girl's eyes opened wide, fixing on Marcus through the doorway. They were violet, unusual even for a vampire. Her lips moved, forming a single word. Help. Marcus didn't think. He acted. His rifle barked 3 times, and 2 of the robed figures dropped. The third spun around, revealing a face that was definitely not vampire. Gray skin, 4 eyes, mandibles instead of a mouth. Kytherian. The alien hissed and lunged forward with inhuman speed. Marcus rolled sideways, but claws raked across his shoulder, tearing through armor plating like paper. He came up with his combat knife, driving it deep into the creature's midsection. Green blood splattered across the ancient stones. Silence fell over the chamber. Marcus stood over the dead alien, breathing hard. His shoulder burned, where the claws had found flesh, but the wound wasn't deep. He turned to the altar. The girl was trying to sit up, but she could barely lift her head. The dark veins had spread further across her skin, and her breathing was shallow and rapid. "American," she whispered in accented English. Her voice was musical, even weakened as she was. "Terran Confederation Marine," Marcus corrected, moving to her side. "What did they do to you?" "Poison." She coughed, and Marcus saw blood on her lips. "Catherian bioweapon. It feeds on our essence, our life force. There is no cure." Marcus had heard rumors about such weapons. The Catherians were masters of biological warfare, creating targeted diseases that affected specific species. If they had developed something that could kill vampires, it would shift the balance of power in the war. "What's your name?" "Lirelai." I was the seventh daughter of House Nix." She struggled with each word. "The Catherians. They wanted information about our defenses. When I refused to give it to them, they used me as a test subject for their new weapon." Marcus looked around the chamber. "There has to be something we can do. Medicine? Technology? Something." Lirelai shook her head weakly. "The only thing that might slow the poison would be fresh blood from a compatible donor. But it would only delay the inevitable, and no vampire would risk exposure to this disease." "What about human blood?" She looked at him with surprise. "Human blood is different. It carries properties that our kind cannot fully process. It might slow the poison, yes, but it would also create a bond between us, a blood bond. I would be connected to you until one of us dies." Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering. Through the chamber's windows, he could hear weapons fire in the distance. His team was still fighting, still trying to complete the mission. The smart thing would be to leave this girl and get back to the fight. But Marcus had grown up on stories of knights and heroes, of people who did the right thing even when it was dangerous. His grandmother had read him tales of brave men who saved princesses from dragons. The irony wasn't lost on him that now he was the one with the weapon, and the princess was the one who drank blood. "This bond thing, what exactly does that mean?" Lirelai's eyes were growing dimmer. "It means my life would be sustained by yours. Your emotions, your thoughts, they would affect me, and mine would affect you. We would be linked, spiritually and mentally. In the old times, such bonds were created only between married couples or blood family. And you would live? Yes, as long as the bond holds and you remain healthy." Marcus pulled out his combat knife and looked at the blade. It was still stained with Catherian blood, but the edge was clean. "Do it." "You don't understand," Lirelai whispered urgently. "Once created, a blood bond cannot be broken. You would be tied to me forever. Your people would not understand. My people would not accept it. You would be giving up your life as you know it. Maybe. But you'd be alive." Marcus drew the blade across his palm, watching red blood well up in the cut. "And maybe alive is better than the alternative." Lirelai stared at him for a long moment. "Why? You don't know me. We are not even the same species." Marcus thought about that. In truth, he couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the way she had looked at him when she asked for help. Maybe it was the fact that she had refused to give information to the enemy, even facing death. Maybe it was simply that she reminded him of someone who needed protecting. And protection was what he did. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply, extending his bleeding hand to her. Lirelai's violet eyes filled with something that might have been tears. "You truly are unlike any species I have encountered." She took his hand in both of hers and pressed his bleeding palm to her lips. Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation, starting where their skin met and spreading up his arm. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was definitely alien. Energy seemed to flow between them, and for a moment, he could feel her emotions as if they were his own. Fear, gratitude, amazement, and underneath it all, a fierce determination to survive. The dark veins on Lirelai's skin began to fade. Color returned to her cheeks. and her breathing steadied. But Marcus felt something else happening. His vision sharpened, sounds became clearer, and he could sense things about the castle around them that he hadn't noticed before. It was as if his senses had been enhanced. Lirelei sat up slowly, no longer weak and dying. She looked at Marcus with wonder. The bond is complete. I can feel your life force sustaining mine. But something is different. Human blood is not supposed to enhance our abilities like this. Enhanced how? I feel stronger than I have in years. And you? She reached out and touched his face gently. You carry something in your blood that I have never encountered. Something uniquely human. Marcus was about to respond when the chamber door exploded inward. 3 more Catherians rushed in, weapons raised, but Marcus found himself moving faster than he ever had before, diving to cover Lirelei while simultaneously drawing his sidearm. The shots that should have taken his head off missed by inches. His return fire was impossibly accurate. 3 shots, 3 kills. He hadn't even aimed consciously. It was as if his enhanced senses were guiding his hands. Incredible, Lirelei breathed. The bond has enhanced your natural abilities, as well as mine. Before Marcus could process what that meant, his comm unit crackled to life. Echo 7, where the hell are you? We've got incoming ships. Catherian fleet inbound. We need to extract now. Marcus looked at Lirelei, who was now standing and moving with fluid grace. The blood bond had definitely worked, but it had also changed both of them in ways they didn't fully understand. Echo Leader, this is Echo 7. I've discovered why the Catherians hit this place. They've developed a bioweapon that targets vampires. I've got intel and a witness. Copy that. Get to the extraction point. 5 minutes. Marcus turned to Lirelei. Can you travel? She nodded, but her expression was troubled. The bond requires us to remain close to each other. If we are separated by too great a distance, both of us will weaken and eventually die. How close? Perhaps a few kilometers at most. Marcus considered this. Bringing an alien vampire aboard a Terran Confederation ship would raise questions he wasn't prepared to answer. But leaving her here would kill them both. Looks like you're coming with me, he said. Lirelei smiled for the first time since he'd found her. I should warn you, Marcus Kane of Earth. My father is the ruler of House Nyx, one of the most powerful vampire clans in this sector. When he learns what has happened here, when he discovers that his daughter is blood bonded to a human, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind that start wars. Marcus hefted his rifle and checked his equipment. Through their new bond, he could feel Lirelei's emotions more clearly now. She was afraid, but not of death or pain. She was afraid of what their joining might mean for both their peoples. Well, Marcus said, heading for the chamber exit. I guess we'll figure that out when we get there. Right now, we need to get off this rock before the Catherians turn it into space dust. Lirelei followed him, moving with a grace and speed that was definitely enhanced beyond normal vampire abilities. You may be the most unusual human I have ever encountered. Yeah, I get that a lot. As they made their way through the ancient castle toward the extraction point, Marcus couldn't help but wonder what he had gotten himself into. He had saved a life, but in doing so, he might have started something much bigger than either of them could control. Behind them, Catherian ships were beginning their bombardment of the castle. Whatever the aliens had been planning here, they were determined to leave no evidence behind. Marcus and Lirelei ran through corridors lit by explosions, their newly formed bond pulling them forward together into an uncertain future. The blood bond was just the beginning. The Terran dropship times Valkyrie times hummed through space, its hull scarred from the desperate extraction from the vampire moon. Marcus sat in the medical bay, watching the ship's doctor examine Lirelei with equipment that had never been designed for non-human physiology. Her vitals are completely outside normal parameters, Doctor, Sarah Chen muttered, frowning at her scanner readings. But she appears healthy. More than healthy, actually. I've never seen cellular regeneration rates like this. Marcus felt the truth of it through their bond. Lirelei was not just recovered from the poison. She was stronger than she had ever been. The human blood had done something unexpected to her vampire physiology, something that even she didn't fully understand. The question is, Lieutenant Rivera said from the doorway. "What exactly do we do with our guest?" Marcus stood at attention. "Sir, Princess Lirelei has valuable intelligence about Catherian bioweapons. She could be crucial to our war effort." Rivera studied the vampire woman, who sat gracefully on the medical table despite being in a Confederation military vessel surrounded by potential enemies. Her violet eyes met his gaze steadily, showing no fear. "I appreciate your assistance, Lieutenant Rivera," Lirelei said in perfect English. "However, I should point out that my situation is rather more complicated than your Marine has indicated." "How so?" Marcus tensed. He hadn't told his CO about the blood bond yet. He wasn't sure how to explain it. And part of him hoped they could figure out a solution before it became an issue. "Marcus and I are connected by a blood bond," Lirelei said calmly. "If we are separated by more than a few kilometers, we will both die. This is not a temporary condition." The silence in the medical bay was deafening. Dr. Chen's scanner clattered to the floor. Rivera's face went through several color changes before settling on red. "Marine Kane, is this true?" "Yes, sir, but I can explain. You blood bonded yourself to an alien without authorization?" Rivera's voice was deadly quiet. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I saved her life, sir, and possibly prevented the Kytherians from obtaining intelligence that could have cost us the war. You've created a diplomatic incident that could drag us into a three-way conflict." Rivera turned to pace in the small space. "The vampire houses have remained neutral in this war precisely because they want to avoid entanglements. Now we have their princess permanently attached to one of our soldiers?" Dr. Chen picked up her scanner and began running it over Marcus. "Lieutenant, his readings are off the charts too. Enhanced reflexes, improved cognitive function, strengthened immune system. Whatever this bond did, it changed them both." Marcus felt Lirelei's amusement through their connection. She was actually enjoying Rivera's distress, though she kept her expression neutral. "There is something else you should know," Lirelei said. "My father, Lord Nyx, is the head of the Vampire Council. He will be looking for me by now. When he discovers what has happened, he will demand my immediate return. And if we can't do that, then House Nyx will consider it an act of war." Rivera slumped against the wall. "Outstanding. We're 3 days out from the nearest Confederation base, and we're carrying the daughter of an alien warlord who's probably assembling a fleet to come after us." "Actually," Dr. Chen interrupted, studying her readings, "we might have a bigger problem. The bond is still stabilizing. Both of their physiologies are continuing to adapt. I have no idea what the end result will be." Marcus felt it too. The connection was growing stronger by the hour. He could sense Lirelei's thoughts more clearly, and his own enhanced abilities were continuing to develop. His reflexes were now fast enough that he could probably dodge projectile weapons. His mind processed tactical information at superhuman speeds. "The Catherians knew about this," Lirelei said suddenly. "The bioweapon they used on me. They were trying to force exactly this situation." "What do you mean?" "They knew that the only way to save a vampire infected with their weapon would be a blood bond. They chose me specifically because I am Lord Nyx's daughter. They wanted to create a crisis between our peoples and yours." Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. "They were planning to let us rescue you, knowing that someone would try to save your life. They wanted to destabilize the vampire neutrality in the war, but they didn't account for human blood creating such dramatic enhancements," Lirelei continued. "This bond is unlike anything in vampire history. We have become something new." The ship's communication system crackled to life. "Bridge to Lieutenant Rivera. We've got incoming transmission. It's from a vampire fleet, and they're asking for Princess Lirelei by name." Rivera closed his eyes. "Patch it through to the medical bay." The small screen in the corner activated, showing a figure that could only be Lirelei's father. Lord Nyx was tall and elegant, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to burn with cold fire. Even through the transmission, his presence was commanding. "I am Lord Nyx of House Nyx," he said without preamble. "You have my daughter aboard your vessel. I demand her immediate return." Rivera stepped forward. "Lord Nyx, I am Lieutenant Rivera. Terran Confederation Marines. Your daughter is safe and well. However, there are complications. I am aware of the complications, Lieutenant. Lord Nix's gaze shifted to something off-screen, then back. My daughter has been blood-bonded to one of your people. This is an unprecedented situation. Lirelei moved into view of the camera. Father, Lord Nix's expression softened slightly. Lirelei, you are unharmed? I am well, Father. Better than well. The bond has enhanced my abilities beyond anything we thought possible. That is what concerns me. Lord Nix's eyes hardened again. A blood bond between vampire and human has never occurred before. We do not know what you are becoming. Marcus stepped beside Lirelei, feeling her need for support through their connection. Lord Nix, I am Marine Kane. I created the bond to save your daughter's life. I accept full responsibility for any consequences. Lord Nix studied him through the screen. You accept responsibility? You are a child compared to beings who have lived for centuries. Do you have any comprehension of what you have done? I know that I couldn't let her die. Something flickered in the vampire lord's expression. You chose to sacrifice your life for a stranger of another species. This is either remarkable nobility or remarkable foolishness. Maybe both, sir. Lord Nix was quiet for a moment. The Vampire Council is in emergency session. Some houses believe that this bond represents a contamination of our bloodline. They demand that Lirelei be executed and you with her. Lirelei stiffened. Father. However, Lord Nix continued, there are others who believe this development might be the key to ending the Catherian threat permanently. Your enhanced abilities have been noted by our intelligence services. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Enhanced how? My daughter's strength has increased by approximately 300%. Her speed, reflexes, and mental acuity have all improved dramatically. But more importantly, she seems to be developing abilities that no vampire has ever possessed, such as, she can now sense Catherian biosignatures at considerable distance. She can detect their bioweapons and potentially neutralize them. The bond has made her immune to their most dangerous weapons. Marcus felt Lirelei's surprise through their connection. She hadn't realized the full extent of her new abilities. And the human? Rivera asked. His enhancements are equally dramatic. Our scanners show that he can now process tactical information at superhuman speeds. His physical capabilities rival our greatest warriors, and most remarkably, he seems to share my daughter's immunity to Catherian bioweapons. The implications were staggering. Marcus and Lirelei hadn't just saved each other. They had accidentally created a new form of being that could be the key to winning the war. What do you propose? Rivera asked. There will be a formal hearing before the Vampire Council in 3 days. Representatives from the Terran Confederation have been invited to attend. The Council will decide whether this bond is an abomination to be destroyed or an evolution to be embraced. And in the meantime? In the meantime, my daughter and her bonded will remain under the protection of House Nix. Any attempt to separate them will result in war between our peoples. The transmission ended, leaving the medical bay in stunned silence. So, Rivera said finally, we're escorting a political prisoner to what amounts to an alien tribunal that will decide whether to execute 2 people who might be our best hope of winning this war. That's about the size of it, Marcus agreed. Dr. Chen was still studying her scanner. There's something else. The bond is continuing to evolve. At this rate, within a week, they're going to be capable of things that neither vampire nor human physiology should allow, such as, I'm detecting quantum fluctuations in their neural patterns. They might be developing some form of limited telepathy or precognition. And their cellular regeneration is accelerating. They could become effectively immortal. Marcus felt Lirelei's wonder through their connection. They were becoming something unprecedented. Something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Kytherians wanted to destabilize vampire neutrality, Lirelei said quietly. Instead, they may have created the very thing that will defeat them. Assuming the Vampire Council doesn't decide to execute us first, Marcus pointed out. There is that. The ship's intercom crackled again. All hands. This is the bridge. We're being escorted by vampire fleet elements. Lord Nyx has provided us with safe passage to the Nyx system. Marcus looked at Lorelei, feeling her mixture of hope and fear through their bond. In 3 days, they would stand before beings who had ruled star systems when humanity was still learning to use fire. Their fate, and possibly the fate of the war itself, would be decided by creatures who thought in terms of centuries rather than years. "Are you afraid?" he asked her quietly. "Terrified," she admitted, "but also excited. We are something new, Marcus. Something that has never existed before. That is either wonderful or terrible. Maybe both." "Yes, maybe both." Through the medical bay's viewport, Marcus could see the sleek forms of vampire warships keeping pace with their dropship. Each vessel was a work of art as much as a weapon, graceful and deadly. In 3 days, he would walk among beings who commanded such ships, and his life would be in their hands. But through the bond, he could feel Lorelei's strength supporting him, just as his supported her. Whatever they faced, they would face it together. They were no longer simply human or vampire. They were something entirely new, and the galaxy was about to find out what that meant. The Vampire Council Chamber was a testament to millennia of power and sophistication. Carved from a single massive crystal formation deep within the Nyx homeworld, it pulsed with soft light that responded to the emotional state of those within. Right now, that light was a turbulent mix of colors, reflecting the uncertainty and tension in the air. Marcus stood beside Lorelei at the center of the chamber, surrounded by representatives of the 12 great houses. Each vampire lord or lady was ancient beyond human comprehension, their presence so commanding that his enhanced senses could barely process the collective weight of their attention. "The council recognizes Lord Nyx," announced the chamber's moderator, an elegant vampire woman whose age was impossible to guess. Lord Nyx rose from his seat among the council members. "Honored colleagues, 3 days ago, my daughter was dying from a Kytherian bioweapon. Today, she stands before us transformed, bonded to a human who sacrificed his life force to save hers. The question before us is simple. Do we see this as contamination or evolution?" "Contamination," declared Lady Vex of House Grimm, her voice sharp with disgust. "The purity of vampire blood has been maintained for 10,000 years. This, mixing, is an abomination that threatens everything we are." Murmurs of agreement rippled through several council members. Marcus felt Lorelei's tension through their bond, but also her resolve. She was ready to fight for their right to exist, whatever the cost. "With respect, Lady Vex," said Lord Kyne of House Storm, "perhaps we should examine what this contamination has actually achieved before we condemn it." Marcus and Lorelei had spent the past 3 days undergoing extensive testing. The results had been startling even to vampire scientists. Their bond had created abilities that neither species possessed alone. Enhanced strength, speed, and reflexes were just the beginning. They could now sense hostile intent from considerable distances, process tactical information at superhuman speeds, and most remarkably, they had developed limited precognitive abilities. "The tests show impressive enhancements," admitted Lady Vex. "But at what cost? We know nothing about the long-term effects. The human could die in 50 years, taking Princess Lorelei with him. Or worse, this bond could spread, contaminating our entire species. The bond cannot be forced on anyone." Lorelei spoke for the first time, her voice carrying clearly through the crystal chamber. "It requires willing participation from both parties, and the enhancements we have gained make us immune to Kytherian bioweapons." "You speak of immunity," said Lord Thane of House Shadow, "but we have only your word for this." Marcus had been hoping this moment wouldn't come, but he had prepared for it. "Honorable Council, if I may demonstrate." He pulled a small vial from his pocket. The liquid inside glowed with an evil green light. Every vampire in the chamber recoiled instinctively. "This is a sample of the bioweapon that was used on Princess Lorelei," Marcus explained, "captured from the Kytherian laboratory. It should kill any vampire within moments of exposure." "You cannot mean to..." Lord Nyx started to rise from his seat. "Father, it's all right," Lorelei said calmly. She took the vial from Marcus and drank its contents. The chamber erupted in shocked gasps and angry shouts. Several council members were on their feet, demanding that Marcus be executed for poisoning the princess. But Lirelei simply stood there, unaffected. "As you can see," she said when the noise died down, "the bond has made me immune. More than immune, actually. I can now sense the bioweapon's molecular structure and neutralize it." She gestured, and the green glow that had clung to the vial faded completely. The weapon was gone, broken down into harmless components. "Impossible," breathed Lady Vex. "Not impossible," said Dr. Chen, who had been permitted to address the council as a technical expert. "The bond has altered their cellular structure in ways we don't fully understand. They can process and neutralize toxins that would kill either of their parent species. This is what the Catherians feared," Marcus added. "They wanted to destabilize vampire neutrality in the war. But they accidentally created the one thing that could defeat them completely." Lord Kane leaned forward. "You believe you can end the Catherian threat?" I believe we can turn the tide," Marcus replied. "But not alone. The bond gives us abilities. But it doesn't make us invincible. We would need the support of both our peoples." The chamber fell silent as the council members considered this. Marcus could feel the weight of history in the moment. These beings had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, and now they were being asked to bet on something that had never existed before. That's when the alarm started. The crystal chamber's light shifted to deep red as warning klaxons echoed through the complex. Lord Nyx's communication device chirped urgently. "Report," he commanded. "My lord, Kytherian fleet, dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple capital ships, heading directly for the homeworld." Through their bond, Marcus and Lirelei felt it simultaneously. The approaching ships carried something that made their enhanced senses scream warnings. Not just conventional weapons, but bioweapons, on a massive scale. "They're going to try to poison the entire planet," Lirelei said, her voice tight with certainty. Lady Vex stood, her earlier hostility forgotten. "How long until they reach our defenses?" 20 minutes, my lady. "The orbital platforms will stop them," Lord Thane declared. Marcus shook his head, the tactical information flowing through his enhanced mind with crystal clarity. "They won't get close enough to use conventional weapons. They'll release the bioweapon in the upper atmosphere. It will rain down like poison snow. Our planetary shields won't stop a biological agent designed to mimic atmospheric gases." Lirelei finished. "I can sense the weapon's structure. It's far more sophisticated than what they used on me." The council chamber erupted in urgent discussions. Evacuation plans, defensive strategies, desperate options were all considered and discarded. The homeworld held nearly 1 billion vampires. There was nowhere to evacuate them to in 20 minutes. "There is a way," Marcus said quietly, but his enhanced voice carried through the chamber, stopping all conversation. "The bond has given us immunity to their bioweapons, but more than that, it's given us the ability to neutralize them. If we can get close enough to their ships, we can destroy the weapon before they deploy it. 1 human and 1 vampire against an entire fleet?" Lady Vex's voice was skeptical. "Not just any human and vampire," Lord Nyx said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn in his ancient eyes. "Ones who can move faster than our sensors can track, who can process tactical data at superhuman speeds, and who are completely immune to the enemy's most dangerous weapons." Through their bond, Marcus felt Lirelei's agreement and determination. This was what they had been created for. What their sacrifice had been leading toward. They were no longer just individuals trying to survive. They were something new, something designed to face threats that neither of their species could handle alone. "How do we get them to the ships, Doctor?" Chen asked practically. Lord Nyx smiled for the first time since Marcus had met him. "House Nyx has always maintained the fastest ships in the vampire fleet. My personal fighter can reach those vessels before they deploy their weapon." "Father, it's too dangerous," Lirelei protested. "If something goes wrong, then we all die anyway," Lord Nyx replied. "At least this way, we die fighting." The council voted in seconds. 12 voices united in approval. whatever their doubts about the bond. The immediate threat overrode all other considerations. Minutes later, Marcus found himself strapped into a vampire fighter that was more artwork than machine. Lord Nix piloted with centuries of experience, the ship responding to his commands like an extension of his body. Through the cockpit, Marcus could see the Catherian fleet growing larger. "Target the lead ship," Lirelei said from behind him. "That's where the primary bioweapon is housed." Marcus felt her certainty through their bond. Their enhanced senses could pick out details that the ship's computers missed. The lead Catherian vessel was different from the others, its hull modified to carry the bioweapon deployment systems. "Launching in 30 seconds, Lord Nix announced. "The moment we clear the fighter, you're on your own." Understood. The plan was insane by any reasonable standard. Marcus and Lirelei would be launched toward the enemy ship in environmental suits, relying on their enhanced abilities to board and neutralize the bioweapon before it could be deployed. If they failed, not only would they die, but the vampire homeworld would fall to the most horrific biological weapon ever created. Launch. Space opened around them as they were expelled from Lord Nix's fighter. Marcus had done orbital insertions before, but never without a ship, and never while trusting his life to abilities he'd only had for a week. The Catherian vessel loomed before them, its hull bristling with defensive weapons. Marcus felt Lirelei's enhanced reflexes, guiding them both as they twisted through the defensive fire. Plasma bolts that should have killed them 10 times over missed by centimeters. "Docking bay, starboard side," Lirelei called through their comm link. But Marcus was already moving toward it, their bond allowing them to coordinate perfectly. They hit the docking bay's atmospheric barrier at incredible speed, rolling and absorbing the impact in ways that should have broken bones. Instead, they came up running, their enhanced strength allowing them to rip through the bay's blast doors like paper. The interior of the Catherian ship was a nightmare of biological technology. Living walls pulsed with alien circulatory systems, and the air was thick with spores that would have been deadly to normal humans or vampires. "This way," Lirelei said, leading them through corridors that seemed to shift and breathe around them. They encountered guards, but the Catherians had never faced anything like what Marcus and Lirelei had become. Their enhanced speed and strength, combined with perfect coordination through their bond, made them unstoppable. They flowed through the ship's defenses like water, leaving destruction in their wake. The bioweapon chamber was vast, filled with tanks of the green poison that would have killed every vampire on the planet below. At the center stood a massive deployment device, its countdown showing less than 5 minutes remaining. "I can neutralize it," Lirelei said, "but I need to touch the central processing unit." That processing unit was surrounded by Catherian guards and defensive systems. Under normal circumstances, it would be a suicide run, but they weren't normal anymore. Marcus provided covering fire while Lirelei danced through the defensive systems with inhuman grace. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to place shots with perfect accuracy, clearing her path while avoiding the wild return fire from panicked guards. Lirelei reached the processing unit and placed her hands on its surface. Through their bond, Marcus felt the bioweapon's molecular structure unraveling as she imposed her will upon it. The green glow of the tanks began to fade. "It's working," she called. "But the ship's self-destruct is activating. They'd rather die than let us." The explosion threw them both across the chamber as the Catherian ship began to tear itself apart. Through his enhanced senses, Marcus could feel the other ships in the fleet detecting their vessel's destruction and beginning to fall back. "The bioweapon?" he asked as they struggled to their feet. "Neutralized completely. The molecular template has been destroyed. They can't reproduce it." They ran through collapsing corridors as the ship died around them. Their enhanced abilities let them navigate obstacles that would have trapped anyone else. But even their improvements had limits. They weren't going to make it to the docking bay. That's when Lord Nix's fighter appeared outside a hull breach, its weapons carving a path through the wreckage. "Jump!" His voice crackled through their comms. Marcus and Lirelei leaped into space as the Catherian ship exploded behind them. Lord Nix caught them in his ship's tractor beam and pulled them to safety, just as debris rained through the space they had occupied. Hours later, they stood once again before the Vampire Council, but the atmosphere had completely changed. The representatives of the 12 great houses looked at them not with suspicion, but with something approaching awe. "The Catherian fleet has withdrawn," Lord Nix reported. The bioweapon threat has been eliminated permanently. The molecular template cannot be reconstructed. And this was accomplished by the bonded pair alone? Lady Vex asked. With minimal support, Lord Nix confirmed. What my daughter and Marine Kane have become is beyond our previous understanding. They are no longer simply vampire or human. They are something new, something capable of facing threats that would destroy either of our species individually. The vote was unanimous. The bond was declared not just acceptable, but a new evolution that should be protected and studied. Plans were made for joint research between vampire and human scientists to understand the implications. But Marcus barely heard the formal declarations. Through the bond, he could feel Liralay's emotions as clearly as his own. Relief, joy, and underneath it all, a deep contentment that came from finding where they belonged. They had started as strangers from different species, brought together by desperation and circumstance. They had become something unprecedented, something that the galaxy had never seen before. The bond that tied them together was no longer a burden or a complication. It was simply who they were. Later, as they walked through the crystal gardens of the Nix estate under alien stars, Marcus reflected on how much had changed in just a week. Do you regret it? Liralay asked, somehow knowing his thoughts. Which part? Saving your life? Creating the bond? Changing the course of a galactic war? All of it. Marcus considered the question seriously. His old life was gone forever. He could never return to being simply human, and the bond meant he would live far longer than any natural human lifespan. His family, his friends, even his species would all be gone centuries before his life ended. But through the bond, he could feel Liralay's presence like a warm light in his mind. Her strength supported him, just as his supported her. They had become something greater than either could be alone. Something that could face threats neither species could handle individually. No, he said finally. I don't regret any of it, even though you gave up your humanity to save someone you barely knew. Marcus smiled, looking up at stars that belonged to neither Earth nor the vampire homeworld, but to the vast galaxy they would now help protect. I didn't give up my humanity, he said. I expanded it. The bond between them pulsed with shared understanding and affection. They were no longer human or vampire, but something entirely new. Something that proved cooperation between species could create possibilities that neither could achieve alone. In the distance, the lights of the vampire capital city glowed softly in the alien night. Tomorrow, there would be new challenges, new threats to face, new boundaries to explore, but they would face them together, as they always would. The blood bond was no longer a complication to be endured. It was home.